Number 36. Representation and Internal Taxation. Richard Henry Lee was arguably the best-known anti-federalist writer. His pamphlets were widely distributed and reprinted in newspapers. Anti-Federalist Papers Number 36 and Number 37 are excerpts from his first pamphlet. Anti-Federalist Nos. 41, 42, 43, 55, 56, 57, 58, 61, 63, 69, 76, 77 are taken from his second pamphlet. A power to lay and collect taxes at discretion is in itself of very great importance. By means of taxes, the government may command the whole or any part of the subject's property. Taxes may be of various kinds, but there is a strong distinction between external and internal taxes. External taxes are import duties, which are laid on imported goods. They may usually be collected in a few seaport towns and of a few individuals, though ultimately paid by the consumer. A few officers can collect them, and they can be carried no higher than trade will bear, or smuggling permit, that in the very nature of commerce, bounds are set to them. But internal taxes, as poll and land taxes, excises, duties on all written instruments, etc., may fix themselves on every person and species of property in the community. They may be carried to any lengths, and in proportion as they are extended, numerous officers must be employed to assess them, and to enforce the collection of them. In the United Netherlands, the general government has complete powers as to external taxation. But as to internal taxes, it makes requisitions on the provinces. Internal taxation in this country is more important, as the country is so very extensive, as many assessors and collectors of federal taxes will be above 300 miles from the seat of the federal government, as will be less. Besides, to lay and collect taxes in this extensive country must require a great number of congressional ordinances immediately operating upon the body of the people. These must continually interfere with the state laws, and thereby produce disorder and general dissatisfaction, till the one system of laws or the other, operating on the same subjects, shall be abolished. These ordinances alone, to say nothing of those respecting the militia, coin, commerce, federal judiciary, etc., will probably soon defeat the operations of the state laws and governments, should the general government think it politic, as some administration, if not all, probably will, to look for a support in a system of influence. The government will take every occasion to multiply laws and officers to execute them, considering these as so many necessary props for its own support. Should this system of policy be adopted, taxes more productive than the impost duties will, probably, be wanted to support the government, and to discharge foreign demands, without leaving anything for the domestic creditors. The internal sources of taxation then must be called into operation, and internal tax laws and federal assessors and collectors spread over this immense country. All these circumstances considered, is it wise, prudent, or safe to vest the powers of laying and collecting internal taxes in the general government, while imperfectly organized and inadequate, and to trust to amending it hereafter and making it adequate to this purpose? It is not only unsafe, but absurd to lodge power in a government before it is fitted to receive it. It is confessed that this power and representation ought to go together. Why give the power first? Why give the power to the few, who, when possessed of it, may have address enough to prevent the increase of representation? Why not keep the power, and when necessary, amend the Constitution, and add to its other parts this power, and a proper increase of representation at the same time? Then men who may want the power will be under strong inducements to let in the people, by their representatives, into the government, to hold their due proportion of this power. If a proper representation be impracticable, then we shall see this power resting in the states, where it at present ought to be, and not inconsiderately given up. When I recollect how lately Congress, conventions, legislatures, and people contended in the cause of liberty, and carefully weighed the importance of taxation, I can scarcely believe we are serious in proposing to vest the powers of laying and collecting internal taxes in a government so imperfectly organized for such purposes. Should the United States be taxed by a House of Representatives of 200 members, which would be about 15 members for Connecticut, 25 for Massachusetts, etc. Still, the middle and lower classes of people could have no great share, in fact, in taxation. I am aware it is said that the representation proposed by the new Constitution is sufficiently numerous. It may be for many purposes, but to suppose that this branch is sufficiently numerous to guard the rights of the people in the administration of the government, in which the purse and sword is placed, seems to argue that we have forgot what the true meaning of representation is. In considering the practicability of having a full and equal representation of the people from all parts of the Union, not only distances and different opinions, customs and views, common in extensive tracts of country, are to be taken into view, but many differences peculiar to Eastern, Middle, and Southern states. These differences are not so perceivable among the members of Congress and men of general information in the states as among the men who would properly form the Democratic branch. The Eastern states are very democratic and composed chiefly of moderate freeholders. They have but few rich men and no slaves. The Southern states are composed chiefly of rich planters and slaves. They have but few moderate freeholders, and the prevailing influence in them is generally a dissipated aristocracy. The Middle states partake partly of the Eastern and partly of the Southern character. I have no idea that the interests, feelings, and opinions of 3 or 4 millions of people, especially touching internal taxation, can be collected in such a house. In the nature of things, 9 times in 10, men of the elevated classes in the community only can be chosen. I am sensible also that it is said that Congress will not attempt to lay and collect internal taxes, that it is necessary for them to have the power, though it cannot probably be exercised. I admit that it is not probable that any prudent Congress will attempt to lay and collect internal taxes, especially direct taxes. But this only proves that the power would be improperly lodged in Congress, and that it might be abused by imprudent and designing men. I have heard several gentlemen, to get rid of objections to this part of the Constitution, attempt to construe the powers relative to direct taxes as those who object to it would have them. As to these, it is said that Congress will only have power to make requisitions, leaving it to the states to lay and collect them. I see but very little color for this construction, and the attempt only proves that this part of the plan cannot be defended. By this plan there can be no doubt, but that the powers of Congress will be complete as to all kinds of taxes whatever. Further, as to internal taxes, the state governments will have concurrent powers with the general government, and both may tax the same objects in the same year. And the objection that the general government may suspend a state tax as a necessary measure for the promoting the collection of a federal tax is not without foundation. The Federal Farmer.